Good morning. I hope that you guys have enjoyed the discussion so far. Very interesting insights and panels to date. My name is Susan Wedge. I work within our IBM Global Business Services Consulting Unit, and I lead what we call our digital and cognitive service lines. So the work that we're doing here, the consulting services, everything from our strategy and design work all the way through cognitive and analytics, falls within my purview, focused on the government space. We'll spend the next 25 minutes really talking about improving citizen experiences through digital reinvention. And try to leave a few minutes at the end for questions and really information sharing. I think all of you have probably had your own set of experiences, and I find the value in these types of sessions is really being able to share our own points of view and our own perspectives. There's been a lot of talk over the last several years about citizen centricity, and government needs to be more citizen-centric. I would argue that government is and always has been citizen-centric. If you look at the missions of every government agency are different, but if you look at the mission statements of those government agencies, the citizen really is at the heart of every one of those missions, whether it be the air traveler, the taxpayer, the student, the veteran. I'll give you a few excerpts or examples from some current government mission statements. Excerpts only. IRS, provide America's taxpayers top quality service by helping them understand and meet their tax responsibilities. CBP, safeguard America's borders, thereby protecting the public from dangerous people and materials. And the VA, serving and honoring the men and women who are America's veterans. So when we talk about citizen centricity, that's already at the foundation of our government. Our government agencies interact with millions of citizens on a daily basis, and it really is the foundation of our government. So what's changed? Why is this all of a sudden a hot topic? Why are we talking about improving citizen experiences? It's really come down, in my perspective or my point of view, around the fact that technology forces are fundamentally creating new experiences, and they're disrupting operational models. That's sort of the first thing that I think of. Just given the rate and pace of change of technology, it is really creating those new experiences and disrupting operational models. Data, as Sam Gordy, our general manager, talked about this morning, is truly becoming the new natural resource. There's an abundance of data, and much of that data has been created. I believe the statistics are 90% of the world's data has been created in the last 2 years, and less than 1% of that has been analyzed. So those are astounding facts, but as you think about the importance of data to the missions of each of your government agencies and to serving the citizen, they're astounding numbers. And then the third area is we are very much a connected society. Historically, we've been able to think about what happens within the boundaries of our own organizations. And I would argue that in the current environment, organizations are becoming boundaryless. It's much important about not only what happens within your organization, but what happens within the network in which you interact. So I think those are really the three areas or the three forces that are driving this discussion about how are we going to do things differently, or the need to do things differently. I would add one more to that around experience and citizen expectations. I don't know about you, but years ago, I would order something online, and it would show up in my house in 5 days. It was wonderful. I didn't have to go to the store. In the era of Amazon Prime, when you can order something, and at most it shows up in your house 2 days later, and currently, depending on the item you order, it shows up same day. Our expectations have changed. I know I can speak for myself and say the last best experience that I've had, whether that be something showed up the same day, is the expectation that I have, the minimum expectation I have for every interaction I have, whether that be with another corporation or whether that be with a government agency. The statistics are very interesting. There's pulled some numbers. There's about 88% of the U.S. population today owns a smartphone. but only about 3% of the population interacts with the government with mobile applications. So when you think about those technology forces, you think about the citizen expectations, there's really a disruption in how both industry and government is operating today. One of my favorite examples, I'm not sure how many of you have ever used Airbnb, but they're really an interesting business model. They were founded in 2008, summer of 2008, so less than a decade ago. They are currently operating in 191 countries, more countries than IBM, and they've served over 160 million guests throughout that world. So when you think about what they've done to the traditional hotel industry, it wasn't enough for the hotel industry to think, how do we do things better, faster, cheaper? They really had to reimagine, given the technology available, given the data available, how they could fundamentally change the experience for the traveler all over the world. So really good example of that disruption. In a world where there are so many changes, it is important for organizations to really reimagine or envision how they're going to innovate, operate, and engage with their environment, in that connected environment, with their employees, with the citizens or customers, as well as with their business partners. And at IBM, we call that reimagination digital reinvention. So it sounds like a big, complex word. I know what you're thinking. It sounds hard. It sounds messy. It sounds complex. And I set those thoughts aside for a minute. Over the next couple of minutes, go on a journey with me. Forget about citizen centricity. Forget about digital reinvention. Pretend you're a chef. Anybody like to cook? Pretend you're a chef. You are in New York City. You're walking through Manhattan, and you're headed to the headquarters of Food Network. Believe it or not, you're such a good chef, you can't just make grilled cheese. You're actually about to be on the TV show Chopped. For those of you who have never actually seen the show Chopped, or you're not a Food Network addict like I am, it is a team, 4 chefs participate in a 3-round competition. At the start of each round, they are given a basket with mystery ingredients. They have no idea what's in the basket. And in a matter of 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the round, they have to produce an appetizer, an entree, or a dessert. At the ticking time clock while they're going, at the end of each round, they're assessed, their food, their dish, whatever they've prepared, is assessed by a panel of esteemed judges, true foodies with very high expectations. So that's a little bit about the show. So you're a chef, you're under the lights, you're about to get going. I really equate the experience that you're about to have to what it takes today to interact with citizens and provide services to citizens. And now you're curious. How do you make that tie? I would argue that while you're in the kitchen and you've got the timer ticking, it's really much about the pace in which you, as government organizations, need to operate today. You constantly, the pace of business, regardless of your mission, is very much accelerated. You need to achieve mission outcomes with excellence and do so quickly. Very similar to being that chef in the Food Network kitchen. With the amount of data available to you, there's oftentimes more that you don't know than what you know. Similar to the Food Network kitchen. You don't know what's in the basket. You also don't know, you have the opportunity when you are on Chopped to use any of the staples, any of the ingredients that are in the Food Network kitchen. But the challenge is you don't know what those ingredients are going to be, what staples are going to be in the kitchen before you get there. You don't know how much of any ingredient will be there. And you also don't know which of your competitors are also going to try to use those ingredients. I think it's very similar to the challenge of being able to understand and analyze data and have that, it does often feel like there's more you don't know than there is that you know. And then lastly, much like you face as the chef, the judgment by the foodies, the panel of judges, citizens are expecting more. They're constantly expecting more. So I think it's a very similar analogy to facing that pressure of being able to act quickly, deal with a whole lot of data, and be able to do so while delivering excellent results. Very, very much a challenge, and one that I think is consistent across organizations. So there's good news. The ingredients, the basket, really is, as a chef, you know, that's the hardest, most scariest part about being in the Food Network kitchen is not knowing what's in the basket. At IBM, we have done a tremendous amount of research, as well as obviously engaging with clients globally to look at what are those characteristics of leading organizations in this digital and cognitive era. So who's done digital reinvention and who's done it well, right? What were the characteristics of those organizations? We've studied those characteristics. We've studied those organizations and identified those 8 characteristics. And really, I see those as the chef. Those are your ingredients that are going to be in the basket for you. So while you're in that Food Network kitchen and you're thinking about how do I get from where I am today to continue to deliver outstanding mission results and outstanding services for the citizens, you've got a foundation upon which you can build. So we'll talk about those ingredients over the next few minutes. They fall into 3 categories. The first of those categories is new focus. And the 2 ingredients that are in this area are strategically agile and sustainably resilient. Strategically agile organizations don't just talk about agile from technology or development standpoint. We had an agile development program. They really insert agile principles into absolutely everything that they do, every part of their organization. They have what you would call them an always-on capability to test new ideas, to prototype those ideas. And again, those are ideas, not necessarily technologies. So being able to test things out and test things out quickly. Sustainably, the leading organizations who are sustainably resilient really understand and can protect their critical infrastructure and keep their employees and business partners productive and focused on the mission. They're leveraging cybersecurity analytics, predictive analytics, to be able to identify, understand, and predict new threats and ever-evolving threats, really focused on keeping operations going. So that's really area 1. One of the examples I like about in this particular area is some work that we're doing with Kraft Heinz, the food distribution company. So Kraft really said, we know we need to innovate. If we're going to remain competitive in this market, how are we going to do it? And we believe that cognitive and analytics are a key part to our future, really understanding information and using that information to provide insight and aid in decision making. So Kraft Heinz and IBM launched what they've dubbed the Cognitive and Advanced Analytics Garage. They actually stood up a physical facility within a WeWork, in the Loop within Chicago. They've got a team focused on turning around proofs of concepts in 2 weeks. And then they assess how those proof of concepts go. And some of those turn into pilots and then full-blown production systems. The team's been working for about 6 months. They have hit on nearly every component of the Kraft Heinz North America organization, everything from marketing to operations to supply chain management. And their intent, they identified over close to 160 use cases. They prioritized those as a team, identified 39 that were high priority, and in less than 6 months of standing this up, they've actually produced measurable results in 10 different projects that had a no-kidding impact on what they call their MBOs, their mission and business objectives. So they were able to use cognitive and analytic technologies, real data from their organizations, and do so under this innovation framework or innovation agreement. Lots of excitement, just given the impact and benefits they've had to date. So just one example of an organization that's taken the principles of Agile. In this case, they are heavily focused on analytics and cognitive technologies, but really tried to drive that thinking into their organization. The next grouping is new ways to deliver. And there's three ingredients, back to your basket. There's three ingredients that fall into this area: access empowered, actionably insightful, and operationally responsive. So what does it really mean to be access empowered? As I mentioned earlier, there's a large percentage of the population that has smartphones. A small percentage actually use that to interact with government. Really, being actionably insightful, as we looked at leading organizations, it really was providing that anytime, anywhere, any device access, not only to the customers or citizens, but also to the employees. So enabling employees to do their mission, particularly those employees who are out in a field or distributed workforce, enabling them to do that mission, get information, provide or perform transactions, and provide feedback real time. The second characteristic is really about leveraging cognitive and analytic technologies, looking at the ever-changing landscape of data sources and being able to analyze those data sources to gain that insight. And then lastly, operationally responsive is digitizing those operations and being responsive in such that you can look at how you are performing and quickly make the decision to recalibrate based on that performance. I know I've seen, in my experience, it's oftentimes the hardest decision is the decision not to get started, but the decision to stop. So you've moved forward and you want to keep going, you want to keep going, you want to keep going, when really the best decision is to stop. There's a few good examples in this area. There's been a lot of recent press this spring about the state of Georgia. So Georgiagov Interactive is a tech arm within the state of Georgia, and they announced this spring a pilot that they're doing to help improve their ability to serve their disabled citizens. And what they're doing is they are actually piloting out having citizens be able to interact through conversation with the Amazon Alexa devices. So hopefully you guys have seen or heard of those before. The Bluetooth operated devices, where they'd be able to interact with the device, navigate the website, and obtain citizen services. Really interesting pilot. They announced it in the late April, early May timeframe, and their goal is to have a pilot operational with citizen participation by July. So very quick turnaround. And really, when you think any device, it doesn't necessarily just mean, hey, I've got to create a mobile application. There's lots of things that we're doing. You'll hear about one of them, I think, later this afternoon around chatbots and text interactions. So one really good example there. Another good example, the video mentioned about social workers. One of the things that we've done in New Zealand is the social workers. Obviously a very distributed workforce, like many of your workforces. They go out, they do house visits, check-ins, they need to assess the situation. They've actually given mobile devices and mobile applications to their social workers. One of the things that they found was that social workers would go on a visit, they take a whole bunch of notes, try to track what was happening, come back and have to enter that information into an enterprise system. Maybe once they entered the information, pulled up the case, they realized there was something they should have known when they were on site. So what they've done is they've given mobile applications. The social workers can check in when they arrive on a site, so it knows where they are. It knows how long they spend in the location, the house, or wherever they're doing the visit. They're able to take pictures and capture that, and the data automatically loads into an enterprise system. So they've rolled that piece of it out. They're in the process now of then being able to use the analytics on the data to help predict and help them be better at serving their citizens and protecting the at-risk population. So they're looking at being able to say, if there are certain characteristics or certain factors in the historic file of that family or families of a similar nature, if you go and you observe certain things, here's the action you need to take. So really looking at the volumes of data that they have of their history of cases to help predict at-risk situations where they could take action more quickly. The last and final area is new expertise. New expertise really has two ingredients, orchestrated and talent-driven. So when we talk digital reinvention, this isn't just a technology thing. Really, at the end of the day, it's a people thing. And being orchestrated really is recognizing that you're not just in the confines or boundaries of your organization. Because we are a connected world, if you look at technologies like blockchain, it's proving out that you're part of a network and you have to be able to interact across that network. And so being able to both develop partnerships across that network as well as to share knowledge and information across that network. And then talent-driven really is about creating and fostering a culture where it really is about continuous learning. There's some statistics today about college graduates today will have 7 jobs in their lifetime, and only 2 of those have actually been created. It's a fascinating statistic. So it's less about having the skills today, but having that culture of continuous learning. So these are the 8 ingredients within your basket. I now look to you as the chefs and say, given that you know the 8 ingredients, given that there is a business imperative for you to look at how you're going to improve citizen delivery and citizen interaction, what are you going to do next? So with that, we'll stop there. And do we have a few minutes for questions? We have a minute or two for 1 or 2 questions? Or sharing experiences? Absolutely.
I'm a former IBM employee. I used to work mine. Tell me how you've been using design thinking in getting to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question was, how are you using design thinking in this? And design thinking really is at the heart of what we're doing around digital reinvention. For those of you who aren't familiar with our design thinking methodology or framework, there's a classroom session down the hall later today. Design thinking really is a user or human-centered approach. And what we've done with many of our government clients is really start any of these engagements and looking at reimagining the business of the future, starting with that set of personas. And the personas or users may be the employees, they may be the customers or the citizens. So for example, we've looked in the higher education space. There's lots of talk about Internet of Things and what do we want to do moving forward around Internet of Things on a college campus. And we've sat down with universities and leveraged the design thinking framework and methodology to say, what does the future look like from the student's perspective? And what does the future look like for the administration, the administrative officials at that university, when you apply those types of technologies? So that it's really at the heart of everything we're doing around digital reinvention.
Can you explain to the others that don't know how the process works?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, she's telling me I need to cut off. It is a workshop-based methodology focused on iterating and continuously learning, but putting the human at the center of everything we do. And if you have specific questions, because we are at time, I'm more than happy to answer them on design thinking. Okay, with that, I would like to thank you guys for coming today. We are going to have a panel around analytics and citizen service coming up next. So with that, thank you.